Now that America has passed its so-called TikTok ban, it's worth considering the perspective of another country that also bans TikTok, China. Yes, there's a domestic version available, but the app that you and I use is not made for Chinese consumption. The reason is that China requires all social media in general that's available to be under Chinese control. This has led some of America's big tech companies to do some very funny things, and I'm going to pick here on Zuckerberg, whom we're watching on his infamous smog jog back in 2016. Now, it was in 2009 that Facebook was officially banned from the mainland, and honestly, not much is missed because Facebook has been pretty terrible since 2008. But anyway, ever since then, Zuck has been trying hard to find a way back in. He's had himself photographed reading the works of Xi Jinping. He went on this infamous run in Beijing on a day when the air quality index was something like 15 times what's considered safe for humans, and when all normal people living in Beijing try to stay indoors and certainly not go for an exercise, not even with any kind of filtering mask. Worse still, many times he has inflicted his atonal Mandarin on the world. It's cruelty to the ears. More seriously, though, in the mid-2010s, I think Facebook put like $30 million into a research facility in Hangzhou and tried to open some kind of satellite office in Beijing. They stealth released an app called Colorful Balloons, all about photo sharing, that of course went nowhere and is no longer available in the mainland. And maybe most interestingly, and least reported in the media, was Facebook's development of a software tool to allow censorship. Basically, it would allow a third party to monitor and quash postings based on geographic location and other kinds of network status, taking it out of the hands, for example, of Facebook. And the thinking was this was for Facebook's hoped-for future in China. The software probably wouldn't go to the Chinese government necessarily, but to whatever kind of corporate partner Facebook would be required to have to operate there. Needless to say, this is not something that the company likes to promote or talk about in the US. None of this has gotten Zuckerberg anywhere. Facebook is not available and won't be available in the mainland anytime in the future that I can see. The party is just too uncomfortable with the idea of a social media company it doesn't entirely control. Now back to the US. Now, of course, the TikTok ban is not because of issues of data security, although those are real. They're not unique to TikTok whatsoever, but they are about elections. America's political class was both scared and upset about what happened back in 2016, where there is just ample, solid evidence of attempts at election interference by Russia, not China. What we don't have, at least not in anything I've seen, is proof that that attempt at interference actually had an impact, though, of course, such a thing would be very hard to measure. But nevertheless, I think the feeling is that even the possibility is too great a risk in the eyes of legislators. Now, the campaign that Russia mounted when it was online, they had to buy ads from Facebook or set up bot farms or do other things. But if instead the company or the people managing the algorithm were domiciled in Moscow, all of that would be much less detectable, even in retrospect, to say nothing of real time, and that is conditioning much of the thinking about TikTok. Whether this is wise or not, or what level of risk aversion you're comfortable with, I'll leave up to you. But my observation here is merely that in its TikTok policy, America is now very much following China. It is not going quite so far demanding actual government control. It is merely disallowing the potential control from perceived adversaries. One imagines China, Russia, and maybe some others. As I argued in an earlier video about China taking inspiration from Washington for the framing of a terror war in relation to its western regions, here these two large powers, seemingly at odds, often actually emulate each other in ways that cover no one with glory.